Welcome everyone, YouTube and obviously on the podcast to the Manager Matt Show. Hope you are doing well and delivering through your teams the results you need as a manager and a leader. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. And I know you've heard that before, but as I said last time in one of my videos, 80% of the people who are watching these, and thank you for watching it, they're not subscribing. Come on, I've invested in the time to make these recordings for you. Please invest the time to subscribe, share and like, and leave any comments you want. If you're listening on the podcast, then please do the same. Put the ratings wherever you get your podcast from. Share it with your friends, mates, families and enemies, whoever you want to. Right, this week's show, we're going to look at habits. Bad habits, good habits, habits. What are habits? I mean, habits are everywhere, aren't they? Let's face it, if you think of the normal day, the human brain can't cope with the amount of information that is supplied, constantly being fed. So we create habits. We create the habits we need to make sure we're getting things done in our day. Those could be as simple as you're waking up, you go into the bathroom and brush your teeth. It's a habit you've done. You don't even think about it. Or you go downstairs, you let the dogs out, you feed the dogs maybe. If you've got animals, you feed the cat, feed the budgie. Other animals are obviously available. And maybe make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And that's your first thing. If you've got those vices that you don't like, those bad vices, you might go and have a cigarette somewhere or a vape. Those are the things that have triggered. And if you're a drinker, there may be a Friday night or a Thursday night or even a Monday night, I'm not judging you, that you might just have a drink. That might be your habit. But when it comes to being a manager and a leader, how do you form good habits? And how do you break the bad habits? We all know about the healthy ones. We've mentioned a few of them there. You all more than likely think to yourself, I'm going to have a good breakfast at work. I'm going to drink lots of water. The amount of water bottles that have been created and sold in this world will be amazing. Every cupboard will be jammed with a number of water bottles where people say, I'm going to drink more water, therefore I need this new bottle that I'm going to use. It's going to give me a flavouring or it's going to give me a marker. And then what do you do with them? Well, they just sit in the cupboard, don't you? And you might have a sup of them for a few days and you fall off it because you can't create the habit that you need. And those are the unhealthy ones. The same with the eating. You think to yourself, I'm going to eat healthily. And you might pack your lunch up a couple of days and then you fall off the wagon. You start to eat unhealthy. You miss and forget to make it because you're too tired. Again, the habits haven't been formed. And that's what happens, isn't it? You start getting those habits that are not there. You think to yourself, I'm going to give up drinking. That's it. I'm going to give up drinking. Dry January, probably everyone's had a go at. But after a few weeks, what's the point? And you will, and you to do it, it drops away. And it's same at work. You might get into a habit of coming in, you sit in the office, turn your computer on, check your emails, do your spreadsheet entry or go get yourself a coffee and have a chat with somebody down the road. And before you know it, an hour of your day is gone and you've not been productive. And the next day you go, I'm going to be more productive. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you slip into these habits. So what do you do about those habits? What is good habits we could do? Well, we always say that communication is a problem in our businesses. We don't communicate enough. So it's forming habits that mean that we start to communicate better, more contact, be more informative to our colleagues and staff. So these are things that we want to form good habits around. But how do you do that? There's lots of work on psychology around habits, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it. I'm sure you can easily find plenty of good books out there. Atomic Habit is one of them, if I remember correctly. Really good books. And they talk around this idea of a trigger. So something that triggers you to do something. Then there's the act itself, the action. And then the last bit is the reward. And our brains want the reward. So they know if something triggers us, then that would then cause an action that you do almost automatically, which then forms this reward, these natural ones. And these habits have been formed over time, as I've said. So at work, you need to look at how you can try to trigger something to form that action that then gets you the reward that you want. So if you work backwards from the idea of communicating more, the communication part is the reward, the engagement, people being involved in your business, wanting to talk to you around issues, being engaged if you use an engagement score. So that's that reward. And hopefully you like that part of your business, because if you're a manager, and most people like to talk to people, they're quite personable. So that's the reward. So if you work backwards, well, what's the action you need to do? Well, you need to communicate with your team in a huddle, a 10-minute huddle every day. So how do you make that trigger happen? Well, the trigger could be as straightforward as 8:30 every day. I'm going to put it in my diary. I'm going to put them in a meeting. I'm going to have 10 minutes of meeting. And that's going to be the trigger to do that one. And you repeat that and you put it in there daily. So it's in your calendar, you do it. In the first few days, it's going to be difficult. First few weeks, it's going to be difficult. Keeping momentum, not finding a reason not to do it. Same with the people turning up for this communications meeting or whatever you're going to call it. They'll find a way not to turn up because they'd rather not do it. But with the time, the days that you pass and the more you get into it, before you know it, you'll just naturally start to turn up. The trigger will be 8:30. You'll get there, the action, you'll go through your process, you'll read it out, and then you'll get the reward of the feedback. It's a really simple way of looking at it. So what you got to change, if it's around yourself and you want to improve yourself, how do you change it? First thing with changing anything is to start doing it. I started doing podcasts 3 years ago. And I wanted to do it at the time and enjoyed it and loved the process and still do. But I started doing it and you had to do it. And don't matter, every week I try to record something and do it. Some are okay. Oh, some might be good. Some might be rubbish. Again, comment in the bottom if you think of that or send me an email, managermatt@gmail.com. But I started doing them and I've done them. And even though it may be dark outside, even though I might be tired from a full day at work, I still do the recording. I still have the action. I come into the room, I set the stuff up, and that triggers me to make sure I get the work done. The action of doing it is the enjoyable part, and the reward, hopefully, is lots of thumbs up and likes and subscribes, as I've mentioned earlier on. So that then means that you're driving results out of that. So the result of me doing this is to obviously make podcasts on YouTube. But to you, it might be something else. What have you always wanted to do? What are you trying to deliver? What are you trying to drive forward in your business? Because that is back to that idea of a reward. Build your habits from the reward back. And if you are in bad habits, so, you're getting a trigger and the action is smoking, for instance, or something like that, can you change the action part of it to something different that's less harmful? If you take on board the smoking loop, the idea of a smoking is absolutely pretty foul. If you're not smoking, you smell it, you think, oh gosh, or you have a cigarette and you try it, it's terrible. But of course, you've got that trigger. Might be getting up in the morning, might be getting in your car, might be going to the smoke shelter every day at work at a certain time. Then the action of smoking and the reward is the hit of nicotine. Now, to get around that, because the dangerous bit obviously was the smoking, the action in the middle is you've got vaping. So your vaping has hopefully made it safer and removed the action of the cancerogenic properties of cigarettes. Now, you could argue either way about vaping, because we don't know the ins and outs of it, but that was the idea of it. And I suppose it's the same with you. If you've got an issue that you really don't like, change the action. If you drink too much pop, don't buy pop in the house. There's another good one. So you've always got your water bottle. So you might still have the trigger of wanting a drink and going to the fridge, but you don't find the action of the pop or fizzy drinks for those outside of the UK. So you put water in its place. And the reward, okay, you're not thirsty. Might not taste as good at first, but there's always ways around it. So when it comes to business habits, forming good business habits are looking at where you are, looking at what rewards you want to get or what deliverables you want to make, and then working back to that action. If it's a negative action, can you swap it out for a more positive action? And what are the triggers? What are the ones that actually start these off? What are the ones that keep going? Because I do say it's very difficult to break those habit loops. It's better to try to adjust them to make it easier for you. Well, that's it for this week's show. And if you want to give us some feedback, as it's a gift, please pop it in the comment box. Or if you're listening on the YouTube, on the podcast, please drop me a line to managermatt@gmail.com. I do answer all the emails and would love to engage on new and old topics. Well, that's it for now. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.